Look at that. Rick is live, so that means Facebook is up. Man, 2 nights in a row without a problem. This is getting weird. All right, so we're gonna go 4 minutes early because everything worked perfectly, and that's a nice thing.
Rick is live, so that means
hey.
Facebook.
Beautiful Iman.
Anthony Leone over on YouTube. What's up, brother? All right, so we are live. Welcome back. We are, for those of you that have seen my bright smiling face the last 3 nights in a row, this is night 3 of live streaming. So we normally do it Sunday nights. We normally do it Tuesday nights. We added Monday nights for defense only. And with us being locked down, we're trying to add as much streaming and content as possible because, we're all in this together. We want to have fun together. We want to be able to enjoy each other's company and talk about things we love, which in this case is fantasy football. Tonight, we gave our fearless leader the night to go do his real job. He's got deadlines he's got to meet, but my boy Rob, one of our newest writers, is wonderful enough to join me. This will be episode 3 of the Rob Silver's live stream. Rob, how you doing tonight, man?
Dude, I'm doing good.
Yeah?
Glad to have some fantasy football to talk tonight after another long day of work. So
yeah, I hear you.
Makes it worth it at the end of the day.
It's a fun way to close it down, have a little fun, relax, kick back, talk. Tonight's going to be talking all things rookies, which will be fun. As we get ever so close to the NFL draft, which is always fun times. We got a lot to talk about tonight. So for those of you that are with us, I see we've already got double-digit viewers, so thank you guys for hanging out with us. We're talking rookies. We're going to talk, for those of you that didn't notice it or haven't been on YouTube yet today, we posted a mock draft, a round 1 mock draft, and we got a ton of different writers involved. We got guys from Roto Heat, we got guys from DLF, we got guys from Fake Pigskin, and we're doing a mock draft. So each guy gets to pick, then they got to record a video and do a little write-up as to why they made the choice, and round 1 dropped on YouTube today. So if you guys haven't had a chance to check it out, make sure you watch it. It was awesome. All the guys, Rob and I are both involved in it. It was really cool getting to talk about rookies and do a kind of a faux draft. And Rob, what did you think about it so far? We're 1 round in. We're working on round 2 now. How have you feeling about it?
Oh, I think it's great. It's awesome. Already you see even amongst the Roto Heat community how some opinions differ and stuff with some guys, and it'll be really interesting, I think, to see how this plays out over our 3 rounds now and how it plays out in a couple of weeks if we do this again, post-draft and knowing where guys land and how things kind of get shooken up.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting, especially because we have a wide variety of people in different, from different channels and things like that, and kind of how they look at the draft and how things fell out. So far this is just a 1 QB, and we saw a QB draft in the first round. I was really impressed. I wanted to get to that part of the video to see why that pick was made. So I was excited. I think it's cool. Definitely thankful for the guys in the other communities. Shane Hallam from Fake Pigskin and Addison Hayes from DLF. I love those guys. I've just getting to know them a little bit more here recently, and they're just awesome dudes. So it'll be fun. But we're gonna go through it. So I'm gonna go through all 12 picks of round 1, and we're gonna kind of do a quick recap and talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, things that were surprising, and that's how we're gonna start it off. So number 1 overall pick. Some may be surprised. I was not terribly surprised. Jonathan Taylor, running back, Wisconsin. How do you feel about Taylor at the 1-1, Rob?
Oh, yeah, I think that's, going to be common. Maybe even the majority of drafts might go that way. The top 3, I think, for a lot of people, depending on who you ask, are a little bit interchangeable. For me, my draft day decision, if I have the 1-1s coming down right now to Jonathan Taylor or J.K. Dobbins, so it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is when we started rookie content, When we started it, it was kind of Taylor wasn't as exciting in my mind. He was a guy that I get a little nervous about Wisconsin running backs. I got a little biased. And then I kind of put that aside and I started watching tape and I started digging into what he did up in Wisconsin. And I mean, the dude is just lights out. I mean, when he's on the field, like that guy brings it and easily is the 1-1. Obviously not in Superflex, but in almost every other format of drafting, he'll probably be the 1-1 I would expect. At the 102, we see CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver, Oklahoma. Basically, the top wide receiver and the top running backs go in the first 2 picks. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, hands down. CeeDee Lamb's my number 1 guy. I think he's the most complete wide receiver in the bunch. Not quite as good a route runner as Jerry Jeudy, but he's got all those other intangibles we want, and he's a guy I'd like to get too. If I can get at the top to get to it, get these guys, that'd be great.
Yeah. And the interesting thing to me, the question I wanted to pose to you and get your thought on is, what if either of these two goes to a spot that's not ideal? So typically, Rick and I talk about, talent trumps destination, things like that. Do you worry about, like, if Taylor goes to a place where there's a solid back ahead of him, or CeeDee Lamb goes to a place where, that's just not a prolific passing offense, or there's a true wide receiver ahead of him? Do you worry about that with these two players, or do you don't care either? It just, they're just the best?
I don't think you do. As we saw last year with A.J. Brown on a wide receiver standpoint, things can change in a hurry. So I don't worry about the wide receivers from that standpoint. And with the running backs, I mean, if you're in need of a running back, what are you going to do? You're going to not draft one and kick the can down the road a year and draft one next year and hope they land in a better spot?
For sure.
I mean, you're better off waiting, getting those RB3 numbers from them for a couple of weeks and then, seeing what happens. Maybe they take over that job. Maybe the guy in front of them gets hurt. You never know. I mean, things can change in the backfield in a hurry, too. Look what happened in Arizona last year with Kenyon Drake showing up and taking that one over by storm.
Yeah, and especially when you're looking at running backs in fantasy, the shelf life is just so short nowadays. Anything's possible, But typically, you've anybody who's seen us for any amount of time, we talk about the talent trumps destination. The cream kind of rises to the top, and you perfect example was the A.J. Brown. As much as I'm a Corey Davis guy, I like him a lot. I just A.J. Brown proved that he's just the best receiver on their team. I mean, whether or not I like that or not, I really thought Corey Davis was a really talented wideout when he came out. It just is what it is. So at the 103, we saw the other guy that you talked about wanting, J.K. Dobbins. I kind of expect this to be, for me, the 3 and the 4 pick and the 1 and the 2 could kind of go either way, depending on if you're the 101. Some people like to take their wide receivers there, and I could see someone take Lamb at 101 and Taylor at 102. Same goes with 103 and 104. We see J.K. Dobbins and Jerry Jeudy. How do you feel about those next two? Are those kind of your next two guys in your mind?
Wide receivers there, and I can see someone take Lamb a little bit. I mean, I'm going to go, if I were to have all of these first 4 picks, the only one who probably wouldn't go there for me, depending on team need, would be Jerry Jeudy. I might go with DeAndre Swift or there, just because, you like to get those running backs early, and you could have a great young trio right there. But, really, I think looking at the top 6, you can't go wrong drafting the top 6 players in this draft, the 4 running backs and the 2 wide receivers. Really, I'd say even the top 7. From at least my top 7, depends who you have as wide receiver 3.
I'm about to say, Sing is your number 7?
Yeah. So I really don't think you can go wrong picking those guys in any one of those spots. You just you draft the best fit for your team.
For sure. And, and this, and quite honestly, this entire first round is just super talented. Like, a lot of these guys, I have no doubt that they'll have solid pro careers and solid fantasy careers. I mean, they're just really good, talented players. I love Jerry Jeudy. I really want him to be my wide receiver 1, but CeeDee Lamb is just so good. So wide receiver 2 for me is perfectly fine. You're kind of pulling hairs at that point. So the next 2, DeAndre Swift, and then I took Cam Akers at the 106. And I'm assuming those guys are that kind of order for you as well, where you got Taylor's the RB1, Dobbins RB2, Swift RB3, Cam Akers RB4 would be my guess. Yep. Okay.
That hits it exactly the way I've got it right now.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Cam. Like, the more and more I've watched Cam Akers, the more and more I'm like, dude, I hope this guy falls to me. I will draft him every day. I love his talent. I mean, he made that offense hum, and that offense was terrible. I mean, that offensive line is just brutal.
Yeah, I agree. When you watch tape, right, you nitpick a little bit and stuff, and you see times where his decision making's not right. More so than the other three guys above him. But when you sit back and look at it objectively, I think a lot of it has to do with half the time they were coming at him from all directions. The defense, there was nobody blocking in front of him, so he was trying to make the best decision he could. And I'm sorry, when you have to make a decision 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage every single time you touch the ball,
it ain't always going to go well.
Yeah, you're going to get some of them wrong.
Yeah,
and we see that on film, and I think he's been docked by some people for that. But I just think, you see it enough that if he's got decent blocking, I think if he played behind the lines that either of the three guys in front of him played, he'd have been putting up those same kind of numbers easily.
Agreed. Yeah, Paul over on Facebook says, realistically, the top 5 are probably going 4 RBs and Lamb, 6 through 8 Judy, and the best 2 remaining running backs, 9 through 13, are the rest of the tier 2 through 3 wide receivers. Yeah, I mean, so, the way that I've seen a lot of the mock draft, especially with the mock drafts we've been doing lately with the community, it seems as though the first round's kind of rolling out in the same type of order, where you're getting a lot of running backs at the top, sprinkled in with the top 2 wide receivers, and then that's kind of the way it's shaken out. So,
yeah, I'd say there's a solid, normal year draft. There's a solid 13 to 15 guys that are first round picks any other year. So, of course, depending on how your draft plays out, a couple of them are going to have to fall to the second round.
Oh yeah, and we're seeing that in the second round. I mean, even when my pick came up in the second, I was like, oh, this guy's been a first round pick in most of our rookie mocks, and he was sitting there. As much as there were guys I wanted, I was like, well, you can't pass up on the talent. But we won't go into the second round. You'll have to wait till that comes out. So you were at the 7. You took Jalen Reagor, and then this is where the quarterback went. Our own Sean took Joe Burrow. I was intrigued. I was like, okay, I got to get to his spot in the video. I want to know, his thinking on this, because normally in a 1 QB draft, you're not really seeing a quarterback go in the first round. I mean, maybe early second, maybe not. It really depends. So obviously sell me on Reagor at the 107, because obviously you're saying he's better than Justin Jefferson, Denzel Mims, T. Higgins, Henry Ruggs. Sell me on Reagor at the 107, and then let me know what you think about Burrow at the 108.
Well, and actually, I've got him on my draft board ahead of Jerry Jeudy, which I know is kind of the big shocker. And that's just because of his explosiveness and what he can do going up to get a ball, those kind of things. Some of those areas where Jerry Jeudy down the field is maybe not as strong in. I mean, Jerry Judy's by far the best pass or route runner in this class. But the thing with Reagor for me is he's really explosive off the line. I think he might be the most explosive wide receiver off the line. You just look at him when he starts and stops. I mean, he's just off with a bang. And it's impressive. I like him. He's got the ability to go up there. He's almost like Cam Akers for the wide receivers. Cam Akers didn't have an offensive line, and Reagor didn't have a quarterback to save his life this year. And so if you look
his whole career.
Yeah, if you look statistically, it looks like he took a big step back. And, that's just not the case. I mean, I can think of, and I'm trying to think of who they were playing. It might have been, I can't remember, but there was a play where he blew off the line, beat the cornerback, cut inside, drew the safety down over the middle, went back outside. If the quarterback gets him the ball, he is going to be gone up the sideline for a touchdown. And he's wide open. Nobody within 12 yards of him, and the ball's thrown 9 feet over his head, and he can't catch it. And, I mean, it was just so frustrating to look at because right there, I mean, that's another 65 yards on his season and another touchdown taken away because the quarterback throws a lame duck.
Well, and I the one thing that I remember catching my eye very quickly with Rieger is his toughness. I mean, there was one game I watched from 2019 where the guy got hurt like either once or twice in the game, and he just kept playing through it, and you could tell even playing hurt, he was still better than everybody else.
Yep. And we might be talking about the same game because I think that play I'm talking about, he got hurt on.
Yeah, I feel like he was going down the sideline, and the guy landed on him, and
he went up and tried to catch it, and he came down on his back, and then the guy tripped over him or something.
Yeah, I think so.
As far as Burrow at the 8, I mean, I wouldn't do it, but listening to Sheldon on it, so Sheldon's a big fan of what Joe Burrow did. I mean, and his season historic. I don't know if we'll ever see that kind of a season again. Who knows? I mean, you throw for 60 touchdowns and that kind of thing. That's pretty nuts.
Well, the interesting thing to me is I liked how he framed it. It was very much you're not going to be able to pay this pick to get him once he really hits. So if you want a guy and you want to get your guy, then you go get him. And would I have done it? I don't know. Probably not, because I normally don't draft quarterbacks in the first round in a 1 QB. But when he said it that way, I was like, okay, I could see that, because there's no way, like right now, like a Lamar Jackson type. You probably got him at the back half of your first, early second in your rookie draft, maybe even further. You couldn't pay the 108 and get him now. Like, the owner would want more than that. So if Joe Burrow is the next big thing, and I'm not comparing him to Lamar or anything, but if he's the next big thing and you can get him.
No, I mean, that's, you can't get Lamar for that. You can't get Mahomes for that.
Right.
The part where I struggle personally to do that, though, is, there's new quarterbacks coming in every year. And, we've had 2 years in a row where we've had a young quarterback in their, kind of their second year hit at that level.
Mm-hmm.
But the chances of that, comparatively, I think, to some of the other positions in the first round, it just seems a lot less to me.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a high risk, but if you hit, the reward's going to be high as well.
For sure.
So, if you got the team, you want to take that risk, I mean, and you think that that's the guy, I mean, more power to you.
Yeah. Well, and I like what Paul said over on Facebook. Paul said, I can see a lot of people straight hoarding picks 8 through 15 and just not giving them up because of the value. Because we see it. Pick 8, obviously, is Joe Burrow. Pick 9 was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Justin Jefferson went at the 10. Denzel Mims at the 11. And T. Higgins at the 12. And they're still first-round talent guys, even, halfway through the second round. It's like, if I was drafting and I could get a lot of that draft capital this year, I would do it, because there's so much talent in this draft.
Oh, I agree. I got my home league. I got 6 of the top 14 picks, and people are trying to buy them, and I'm like, hey, just wait.
It's going to cost.
I'm not selling yet, because that price is going to go way up, because you guys are going to fall in love closer to the draft.
Yeah. Well, and going back to Burrow, Rick over on YouTube says the only problem is he doesn't have first-round startup potential, and other players here do. But you will see people taking him here in real drafts. And, if you fall in love with a guy, most of the time when I get done, and, and even in one of our Discord chats, somebody had said something about they drafted a guy, how do you feel about that? And I said, well, do you like it? Because if you love it, then it doesn't matter what I think about it. It's your team.
Yep. You take what you feel. I mean, I think I responded to the same guy. I said, if you do that in my league, I'm probably gonna mock you. But at the end of the day, if it's your guy, go for it. But if you're in a league with good league mates, they're going to give you some crap for it. Yeah.
Well, and so so we rounded out with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson, Denzel Mims, and T. Higgins. I really have no complaints there. I mean, Mims, I feel like, kind of keeps bumping himself up into first round consideration. I still, him and Burrow are the two guys that I probably wouldn't have drafted in the first round. But I can't argue somebody who is going to draft them, because Mims has been shooting up the entire draft process, and But that's just me. What do you think about those last four?
Well, Mims. Well, I like all those last four. For me, I think Clyde, depending on where he lands, is going to get a bump probably over the wide receivers for me on my personal board and how I'm going to attack drafts if he lands in a good spot. Jefferson, I like him a lot. Getting some comparisons to Stephon Diggs. I don't know if it's, I don't know if I see that all the way necessarily because Diggs is such a good route runner. And Jefferson's very good. I just don't know if that's apples to apples yet.
Yeah, he needs some development, but I mean, he's probably arguably the second best route runner in this draft class behind Judy. So that's probably where I think people are kind of stretching it a little bit.
Yeah, and then I'll skip over Mims for the moment. Talk about T. Higgins. People knock him for being slow. He's not slow. His 40 time was the same as Mike Williams. It was 0.02 of a second slower than DeAndre Hopkins. Two other big Clemson wide receivers. You're going to tell me that either one of those guys is slow in the NFL? I don't think so. He has been a jump ball guy. He's very good. He's very good after the catch. I love T. Higgins. I think, like I said, if I could draft every pick in each of the first 15 picks, I'd love it. I'd take that team. Going back to Denzel Mims, he kind of, like you said, climbed up, especially after the combine.
Mm-hmm.
Good stats and stuff. And I've started to go back and rewatch him a little bit. And also, I'm trying to think who had it. Somebody had a Twitter thread this weekend with Mims in it. And, just showing some of the stuff he does well. And, he does things well. He's very good. He's very good at the out and up, very good at getting the cornerback to bite. I think very, very good footwork at the line. Get the hard jab inside, go outside, or get him turning outside and bring it back inside. Still, the one area is I feel like he can disappear once in a while in that Baylor offense, and I just got to go back and go back through the tape a little bit more and see if that initial feeling is still the case.
Yeah. Oh, and this is a bold take by Paul over on Facebook. So Paul says he'll put his stamp on Mims. He'd take him over Judy.
Ooh, man.
I just read that. I'm like, wow, that's a bold one.
Man, Paul likes those bold takes, though. I tell you,
he does. He's definitely willing to go out on a limb if he likes his guy.
Well, he was fun to watch with you yesterday on the IDP chat. So.
Oh yeah, it was a blast. I love Paul. I mean, so that rounds out round one. Obviously, we're not going to go in crazy detail because watch the YouTube clip. You'll see everybody's reasoning for why they took the guys. I expect as your rookie drafts come out, this is probably going to be pretty close. You're going to see a lot of these same names. I think some of the second round guys will probably kind of move around there at the back half of the first because there's a couple guys that haven't been called yet that I think have that kind of value. But we'll see. We'll see. So next up, we want to talk rookies more. We had a question kind of posed that I wanted to take in a little different direction in our Facebook community. So the question was, who falls to pick 10 that you're willing to pay up and go get? I want to take that question and kind of expand on it. So I want to know kind of how you value your rookie picks. So what do you if somebody comes to you and says, I want the 101 through 105, kind of what's your price range? The 105 through 110, what's your price range? And what are you willing to pay on the flip side? So let's say, Cam Akers falls to the 110 or some guy that you love falls 3 or 4 spots. What are you willing to pay to go up and get him? So that's kind of how I want to take this and kind of talk about the different values of rookie picks. So I want to know what you think, Rob, about, first and foremost, what are those if you're trading those away?
Well, if I'm trading those away, I want to see if I'm looking at a top 6 pick. So I kind of broke this up looking at my top 6. I want to see a deal that comes together without aging my team. but that still provides me similar upside to what those top 6 picks are going to do. That's my main goal if I'm looking to get rid of one of those. If I'm looking at a deal that's going to get rid of one of those, I don't want to, flip a guy who, especially if I'm not one of the top coming off a championship. I don't want a guy who's 29, 30 years old. Maybe I've got for 2-3 more seasons. Think like a Julio Jones. He might be great. He's got still great upside for a year or two, but now I've got to replace him that much sooner. And his value from there is only going to go down, kind of a thing. Where I want to get as much value out of that as I can. So staying young, maybe some sort of a package that has some guys I think are going to break out. For an example, if I could flip a 1-6, let's say, for a 1-9, 110 plus a guy whose people are down on right now because he had a rough rookie year, not a bad rookie year, just didn't really pop out in like a N'Keal Harry kind of a guy, and try to really double up my first round values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was interesting seeing as Paul's in the chat. Paul on Sunday wanted me to talk about this deal I did in one of the leagues we're in together. I just traded for the 101 in a Paul has this league that I'm a part of that's deep. It's Devi, full IDP, super flex. I mean, it's a pretty big league. My team, when I took it over, was a dumpster fire. So I sold off anything I could. And I traded. I was trying to remember what I got to go to the group me chat. I wound up trading. Paul will probably know it off the top of his head. I don't even remember what I traded, and that was like 3 days ago. That's how much I forget. My short-term memory must be jacked. I traded. Let's see here. And I should have had it up already. Sorry to those that are watching. I wasn't on my game on this one. I really should have thought about it. All right, so let's see here. I traded. He probably won't be happy about it. Okay, so I traded. I got the 101. I traded the 103, the 202, Dwayne Haskins, and then Nasir Adderley and Brian Burns. So a first and a second, and then Haskins, he was already on the team when I got him. I don't like Haskins. And then Nasir Adderley, who's the Chargers safety, and Brian Burns, who's the Carolina Panthers defensive end. IDP guys would have a clue. Those are both younger guys that have some potential, but I don't like. Matt Rule took over Carolina, so I'm a little nervous about how he's going to handle a guy like Burns. And then safeties. I have safeties on my roster, so I wasn't afraid to get rid of them. So basically, the 103, the 202, and Haskins for the 101.
Yeah, that's an easy trade for me
because that gets me Burrow.
I get the 101. I don't know the IDP guys. Like you said. But if that were a trade that I had an opportunity to make, and throw in a couple of pieces that maybe aren't developed yet or don't have a great I don't know what you were saying about those guys exactly, but a couple maybe other pieces in a non-IDP league, I could see that kind of a move being made.
Well, and the tough thing is it's Devi depleted. So I already on my Devi roster, I already have Justin Herbert and Jordan Love that are going to come up to the NFL and be right on my roster. So those guys weren't in the draft pool. But Joe Burrow still was because nobody had him. Nobody had him. So I was like, all right, at the 103, I'm probably not, the DeAndre Swifts, Jonathan Taylor, all those big running backs, they're already on people's Devi rosters. So it's like I'm giving up a big haul, but I'm giving it up because I'm getting a guy that probably should have been on somebody's Devi roster and wasn't. But that's the only time that's the first time I've traded for the 101 this year. And I haven't traded for any first round picks this year so far. Normally if I'm trading for first round picks, I don't. Because they get so expensive come draft time.
Well, and that was another point, I talked a little bit about my trading down idea for those top 6, but really I don't trade up at this point in the draft process. Because of the cost. Everything's inflated. What I do is I trade up at this point in the year, I'm looking at trading back because I'm going to get that haul. My trade-ups happen in season or a year out. So, like last year at draft time, I traded Devonta Freeman for a 2020 first and Traquan Smith, hoping that he would break out. And I think I got a second last year as well that I turned into Mecole Hardman. But so I ended up in that case with the 9th pick. Also at the draft last year, I traded David Johnson for a first. Well, that wound up being the 2nd overall pick.
Right.
I traded him for 2 firsts. I got the 5th pick last year and the 2nd pick this year in that trade. So that worked out really well for me. That's kind of where I look to move up is right around that draft time. I'm looking to move up a year out. And then in season, I'm looking to move up that next year, kind of probably through October, especially for the next year's draft. Because that's about the time when all the college hype starts to come out. And then after that, it gets a little expensive again. So if I can sneak somebody in, I will. I did end up getting the pick 11 in January this year, but that was a good worked out all right. But generally, I kind of stopped trading for the upcoming year's draft, generally around the traditional fantasy football trade deadline, because that's when that value starts shooting the other way and it gets unaffordable for me. And hopefully by then I've accumulated a bunch of picks and I can start trading down and getting that haul back the other way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's, and in this draft class, is there a guy that if he falls, you're going to do what you can to go up and get him? Say at the 110, is there a guy that would make you sell to try to go get him? Jalen Reagor falls from 107 to 110. Are you going to go get him?
Well, I think it depends why he falls. If he falls because the top 6 running backs on my board went off, then no, I'm not, because I'm going to get a comparable wide receiver talent still at 12 or 13 or wherever I'm at. If he falls and there's 6 other wide receivers gone, Henry Ruggs, Laviska Shenault are gone, Higgins, Lamb, Judy, maybe Mims, they're all gone, and Reagor's falling like that, and now I'm sitting there and I'm going to trade up, but who knows, it might be for one of the running backs at that point, but, it just really depends, this class, it's hard to consider trading up unless you're outside of the top 15 for me. If you're outside of the top 15, I feel like you got to find a way to trade up. But you're probably going to end up losing a player to do it. Just because of the class. You're going to lose a pretty good piece on your roster if you want to trade up now. You kind of missed the boat on that.
Yeah. It's one of those, and I've been seeing trade offers come out in some of the leagues I'm in for early second rounders. Guys are trying to get a future first for these early second rounders because the class is so deep. And if I'm a guy who's got a pick somewhere from 2-1 through 2-6-7, and somebody's offering me what could potentially be early mid-round first next year, I'd consider it. As much as I like the class, if I can get a better option next year, maybe I'll do that.
Well, and looking at the way a lot of these mocks are going, you're seeing 5-6 running backs in that top 12. So, if you're sitting there, like you said, at 12, 13, the running back tier 1 and tier 2 in my book are pretty well depleted at that point. And you look at next year's draft, the wide receivers that are available, you're looking at comparable wide receivers. So I don't have a problem going back into the first next year instead of picking the first pick in the second round. If I can get a first next year and maybe a later second this year, or a whatever that would be, that's a deal I'll make, because wide receivers can kind of float in and out a little bit, and if the running backs are gone, then that's a fair trade to me. If there's one of my top 6 running backs there, I don't know yet because I want to get those running backs.
Yeah, and Rick over on YouTube says, yeah, if Rieger falls because he falls in the NFL draft, you have to be careful.
Oh, yep, that's a different ball game. I think I was kind of referencing, what if if it goes the way we assume at the NFL draft and then he falls.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, any of these guys, there could be something that pops up, and who knows? T. Higgins could be a third-round draft pick for some reason, and maybe his speed is more of a concern to the NFL or whatever. I don't know. Any of these guys other than your top, your Lamb, your Judy are going in the first. Ruggs is going in the first. Any of the other of them, probably late first to top of the third round. If they fall any further than that, we're in trouble.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good. That's a plus. So hopefully that helps you guys understand, kind of how we see some of these trade values, and ultimately now is not the time to trade for those picks if you were looking. If your team's stacked and you want to trade away those picks and get more capital in the future, that's one thing. But now is not the time to buy. You're just going to overspend.
Well, and Paul over on Facebook, he says, one of his favorite moves to make is like trading a 1-6 and like a 2021 third to hope to get the 110 and a 2021 first or something similar to that. And, that's the kind of trade down I love to make. That to me, that's added value. Especially in a normal draft where we top 4, top 5 guys, big tier break. Here it's top 6, so I'd probably top 6 or top 7, so I'd probably put that cut myself at the 7th or 8th pick where I'd want to look at trading down. But definitely, I 100% agree with him.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so our next topic is based on an article I put out over the yesterday. Just kind of trying to float out some names of potential rookie sleepers, guys that I could see slipping and sliding around in your fantasy drafts, and maybe be somebody that you could take a shot on and have some value. I kind of tried to hit a little bit of everything. I tried to hit some quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. So I want to spend some time, and I want to hear some guys that aren't your prototypical first, early second type guys, but guys that you really liked for whatever reason. And it could be deeper guys that you want to stash. I mean, my article has deep guys that I want to stash, as well as guys that I think could probably be early second round picks. So, what kind of guys are you excited about that are maybe not your main guys?
Well, I put together a short list for this. One is a new one that I added late this evening, and that was because he had surgery today. And so I think that might knock him down a little bit on some people's list. But Brandon Ayuk had core muscle surgery today. Mm-hmm. I wasn't aware that there was an issue there. Heck, I didn't even know we were still doing procedures that weren't necessary. And if that's the case, essential, yeah. If you're not doing, or how does that go? I can't think of it. What's the term they use in the medical field there? For the procedures, not optional.
Like the emergency type stuff?
No, the selective.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's if that's what that was, or was it not? Maybe you could sell somebody on that and get them to talk that down. But Brandon Ayuk, he's raw, but he's fast, he's quick. He's a guy I like as a sleeper that you're going to get at the end of the second, into the third round in a lot of places, I think. And I think got a chance to be a very good wide receiver. People say he doesn't have the early breakout or dominator type stats if you're into those stats. But, he went to JUCO first, dominated there, came to Arizona State, dominated there. What's to say he can't keep doing it and do it at the NFL level? He's had success everywhere he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a guy that I think the draft is going to be big for him. So depending on where he goes, I think that could help him kind of move up later in the draft. But he's definitely a guy that's got kind of the raw skill set that you want. And, these types of injuries, surgery, he should be ready for the season as long as he properly, works himself into shape after. So another injured guy that I brought up, I just posted the article over in the YouTube channel chat, was Brian Edwards from South Carolina. Even before his foot injury, I don't think he was like one of the top tier wide receivers, but I think he's a guy that you could get at the, kind of the mid to back half of the second round. And he could have some value. He's going to have enough time to recover from the foot injury, and he's got a great skill set. He's a guy that I think you can stash on your taxi squad and maybe next year start to see some return on that investment. But what do you think about a guy like Edwards?
Oh, I think Edwards is a good fit there. A couple of months ago, he's a guy folks were talking about as a late first-round draft pick, that 11-12 spot. Not being able to play during the Senior Bowl, I think damaged that stock a little bit. Not being healthy for the Combine knocks that stock down. Not having Pro Day is going to knock that stock down. And so people are forgetting about him, I think.
Yeah, he seems – I don't want to say he seems like somebody you either love or hate, but it seems like people are very kind of divided on if they like him or they don't. And, I think he's a guy that – I'm not banking on him being like a superstar, but I think he's a guy that could be a sleeper. And if he goes into a situation where he can heal up and kind of develop in some of the areas, he's not the most dynamic route runner. He's got some room to grow there, but he's tough and he's really good and contested catches, some of the things that you like. I mean, the dude's like, 6'3", 6'4", 210, 215 pounds. I mean, he's a big kid, so he could be one of those, red zone type threats that, could come in and give your team a little bump down the road.
Yeah, I like him a lot. We'll stick with the wide receivers, I guess, here. And
okay.
Sorry there, I'm having a little phone issue. Fell down.
You're fine.
So, the guy that I like a lot late, and I know Rick's not a huge fan of him, but I like Antonio Gandy Golden. Maybe the next Kenny Galladay. Let's just throw that out there. Small school guy and putting out. What you want to see, I think, when you're talking a small school player like that, is you want to see a guy who is excelling above the rate that the guys who you see as your top wide receivers are at the bigger schools. And so, if you look at him, he's got a bigger market share than a Jerry Jeudy, a CeeDee Lamb. His market share is more than the average for one of your top 5 wide receivers. Check. That's number one. Number two is the percentage of plays that he's involved in on the team. And he is more involved than any of the top wide receivers. So if you got a guy who's going to be a chance to be successful in the NFL playing at a lower level, he's got to be the guy for his team. And he clearly was the guy for Liberty. And and then I just think he's a pretty good athlete, and I don't know. I'm excited for him. I don't think he's gonna, be the wide receiver that, as a rookie, kind of has that breakout, which is kind of what we're coming off last year. We want to see a little bit. You're gonna have to put him at the end of the bench, put him on your taxi squad, let him develop a little bit. Just as an NFL team he's not gonna slide into a wide receiver 2 position right away, I don't think, but I think he's got the skill to be that, wide receiver 3, 4 right away, and eventually become that wide receiver 2 in his second or third year.
Yeah, I was just pulling up some of my notes on him, and the biggest concern I had when I was evaluating him was the fact that he just couldn't beat press coverage. He wasn't great at it, so that was my biggest knock on him. If you can do that at the next level, and obviously you can develop the ability to beat. I mean, the few things you can't teach or develop are size, speed, some of those things, but you can work on it. So if you can do that and he can develop, I mean, the kid's huge. He's a big kid, so that's not a bad thing. Rick responding to you over on YouTube. I don't mind him. He's just not a second rounder for me until we see how the NFL values him. And, you know, and I preface these rookie sleepers that we're talking about. I don't necessarily think any of these guys are going to be locks for, you know, kind of a second round pick. These are guys that we like, that have some skills that could develop into a nice fantasy producer. You know, I'm not necessarily saying this year, some maybe, you know, you never know, but just guys that we like, you know, kind of overall. So, yeah. So the next guy for me, we'll stick with receivers. I tried to do, you know, 2 or 3 at each position when I wrote the article, just kind of guys that I really like. And I am a Michigan man. You know, I'm originally from the Detroit area. I love all things Detroit sports and Michigan sports. You know, that's the world I live in. Donovan Peoples-Jones and Tariq Black were 2 receivers when they came to Michigan. I was like, all right, now we're going to take over this division. And Jim Harbaugh completely screwed them both with crappy quarterback play and just overall poor use of their skills. I think DPJ can be a guy that will develop into a solid receiver. I mean, he kind of jumped off the charts in the combine in some of his drills, but you know, he's a former, what was he, like a 4 or 5-star recruit coming out of high school. You know, he's got the talent. And I think he can be something. I think he can really step in and, you know, even if he's your big slot receiver that can jump off the charts and do some of those things, got a good wingspan, good catch radius. So he's a guy that I really like. I definitely don't want to take him earlier than kind of the beginning of the 3rd round because I don't see him being, you know, kind of a hit this year. But what do you make of DPJ?
Yeah, you know, I'm not a huge fan. I don't follow Michigan too closely, so I'm not overly familiar with him. I just, you know, the thing that, you know, I know his quarterback play was brutal, but, you know, if you're this highly touted of a prospect, you'd like to see something. I feel like we just didn't see enough. You know, even bad quarterback play. Look what Jalen Reagor put up with bad quarterback play. Look, Brian Edwards, people are still, you know, he's still flashed with some great catches with bad quarterback play. I don't know that I ever saw enough of that with Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Yeah. And Rick over on YouTube is denying me what I would love to see him do. He says he's not playing in the slot. Well, a boy can dream. He would be nice there. All right, so who's your next guy? And we don't have to stick with receivers if you want to talk about a different position.
Yeah, no, I'll shift here over to running back and a guy who's kind of a hot name, and Taylor just wrote a nice article, Taylor Cornell, about 2, you know, sleeper running backs, and I'm going to take one of them here, and that's DJ Dallas. You know, I've heard listening to Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks and some of those guys who are in with the NFL scouts that a lot of scouting departments around the NFL feel like he's the best pass pro back in the league. And if you're going to you want to get on the field, pass pro is the way to do it as a rookie, and especially one that's, you know, not one of the top prospects in the draft. So besides that, he's got, you know, great contact balance. You know, watch him bounce off some of those hits. How he keeps his feet, not only keeps his feet, but is centered and still moving forward off of some of the hits he takes is really impressive. I think, you know, if he had played on a team where he got the ball more, he may be a bit higher on some boards. But when you only carry the ball, 100 times and get 600, 700 yards, you know, you're going to be a little bit down on draft boards because the usage isn't there. But he's also a guy who's learning the position. He's new to running back, and in just a couple of years has become a very good running back there for Miami.
Yeah, he's a guy that I was just pulling up my rankings and looking. DJ Dallas is a guy that I think I have at maybe the 12 or I think the 12 spot on my kind of overall big board of players. Oh no, I actually have him at the 10 spot. So he's my 10th favorite running back in this draft. And I think, you know, Miami's another one of the schools that, you know, aren't showing any love to their running backs with the type of scheme that they're running in their line and just the overall poor offense. So, I think Dallas could be one of those guys that could be sneaky, could come in and really do some damage. And I posted Taylor's article in the YouTube chat. I liked it. I thought Taylor always does a good job, but Darrington Evans is a guy I'm not gonna jump all over, but DJ Dallas is a guy I definitely consider as somebody to like there, and could definitely be a sleeper for sure.
Oh, Darrington Evans, I will say, he's with a lot of heart. He's a battler. He's a tough kid, and also shout out to Taylor with that article. Darrington's brother retweeted him this evening, or retweeted me this evening with the article that Taylor wrote today. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, the nice thing about Evans and once Taylor posted, I started kind of looking back at some of the notes I had on him, and I just kind of started poking around out in the community. And there's a guy that does relative athletic scores, and Darrington jumps off the chart for his athletic profile. I mean, he does a lot of things really well, it looks like. I didn't always see that when I was watching him, but he's one of those guys that I will probably wind up being wrong about. He's not in my top 10, but if he falls far enough, maybe I'll take a shot on him, because Taylor's swaying me a little bit. He's not Darrell Henderson swaying me, but I'm definitely putting a notch next to him and saying a guy that I need to look at a little bit further than I did before. The next guy for me, I'll jump over to my three running backs. And one of the running backs isn't really a sleeper, because Rick and I love Anthony McFarland. Anthony McFarland, some people hate him. Rick and I love Anthony McFarland. The tough thing for me with Anthony McFarland is he just didn't get used enough at Maryland. First he was sitting behind Ty Johnson, who was drafted by the Lions. He also was playing with Leakey, Javon Leakey or whatever. He had a lot of other running backs, so he didn't really get used to his full potential. Kid's explosive. Kid's got a big playability. There's a lot to like about him. So he's a guy that I think will probably be, kind of an early to mid-second rounder, so I don't really consider that a sleeper. But I will continue to toot the Anthony McFarland train almost as hard as I was doing the Deebo Samuel train last year. Deebo was a guy that, some folks were sleeping on. I'm like, dude, Deebo's going to be good. I think Anthony McFarland's going to be solid at the next level.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's got he did well at the combine, I think, to quiet some doubters on him. But, I think back to that 2018 Ohio State game, and if we can get that Anthony McFarland, man, that guy could do some damage. But, you always get those guys, and I think that's a theme for running back sleepers, the guys who, for some reason, don't seem to get the usage in college that they probably deserve, and then they end up doing well in the NFL.
For sure.
And give another guy there. I'll go. Michael Pirine is a guy like that as well. I think
he was on my article as well. I agree.
Well, I probably should have read your article a little closer, so I didn't steal all your guys. Come up with my own sleeper list.
No, that's okay. Hey, you know what? I'm okay with it, because that's that means that I'm not crazy.
Yeah, no, I like Michael Pirine quite a bit. I'm not gonna go get him in the first round like people were getting his cousin. Yeah, but I think he's got some good skill. There were times I felt like he looked a little lost back there for Florida, but I think it was that their scheme was just weird. They'd ask him to pass pro, and there'd be nobody to block because there'd be 8 guys dropping in coverage, and then they'd send him out on a route when the blitz was coming, and there were 7 guys in the backfield. So, it didn't seem to gel up all the time for the Gators there with Pirine. But I think his running style a little bit, and some of the moves I saw him making, and just the way he looked as a running back to me, he looked like a poor man's Cam Akers. I think they looked very similar. I mean, Cam's more explosive and that stuff, but just their style of play seems very similar to me.
Yeah, my comp that I put in there was I thought I saw a lot of Sony Michel do his game. He kind of has some of that to him, and I just like him. I mean, I thought he did really well considering the situation he was in. So I agree with you completely. So we got a question over on Facebook that isn't rookie related, but we're gonna bump into it because Jamie Sands is hanging out with us and we appreciate it. Are you buying or selling Chris Carson?
I'm selling, but I still believe in Rashad Penny. So, what does that tell you?
Hope springs eternal.
Yeah, Carson fumbles a lot. Coming off, I mean, injured quite a bit. Seattle's probably drafting a running back. Whether or not that's directly to compete with the two of them, with Carson and Penny, I don't know. Maybe it's a back to do something a little bit different than they do. But we'll have to just see how that kind of plays out. Right now, I'm probably, if I had to do it today, I'm probably selling Carson.
Yeah, depending on the price, I would sell Carson, but I'm not afraid to hold on to him either. If as long as he's not like your RB1 or I mean, he has plenty of opportunity to be successful this season. But if your team isn't competing, I'd sell him. I saw him go. What did I see him go for? He got traded in one of the leagues. I was in maybe a month or so back for it was like maybe the 109 or it was somewhere around the 19, 110 if I remember correctly. I'm not afraid to trade him, but if my team is competing and he's kind of a depth guy that I may not have to trust every week, I'm okay holding on to him too. But I'm never afraid to trade. Any guys who are in leagues with me know that I have no problem trading. I will trade all day, every day, if it makes sense. So,
yep, if it makes sense, for sure.
So thanks, Jamie. Keep pumping those questions through. We'll answer anything you got. Rick. So Rick is helping us over there on YouTube. He doesn't fumble a lot. He had a bad stretch, but it isn't a career issue. So yeah, some of the concern that some might have about Carson isn't really, he's not Tiki Barber. He's not dropping the ball every other carry. So
I guess that's true. Not Jonathan Taylor fumbling the ball every 1.5 games in college. I think that was losing a fumble. Overall fumbling, it was like once every 3.5 quarters or 3 3/4 of a game.
Yeah. All right, so back to rookies. Do you have other guys that you want to talk about at running back? Do you want to go to another position?
No, I think those are – we kind of touched on all the backs I'm thinking about right now. Maybe if there's one other one we didn't really talk about, maybe it's Antonio Gibson. The
he's on my article as well.
Probably going at the draft trying to say, hey, I'm a wide receiver, but once you draft me, I'll tell you I'll play running back for you so you can get some more money. That makes a lot of sense from a pocketbook standpoint. Another guy who was grossly underused, it seems like, in college. I don't know what did he have this year? Brad, do you remember? Was it like 77 touches?
Yeah, it wasn't much.
Yeah, it was just unbelievable when you see the production that he put out on 77 touches. Hopefully that can translate well to some good production in the NFL.
Well, and I'm surprised after his combine that people aren't talking about him more. I mean, the dude ran like sub 4.4. I could easily see him being used as one of those guys that plays all over the offense. I think he's good enough as a receiver that you could put him outside, and throw him some passes. I mean, he's one of those guys that I think is gonna, when we look back at the class, is gonna be one of those sneaky guys where we're like, oh, this could be a really good piece. So yeah, I agree with you. I think Antonio Gibson's one of those guys. Over on YouTube, no, we have not talked about Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Zach Moss because we don't consider either of those guys sleepers. They're solid late first, early second guys. Zach Moss, people don't seem to be nearly as high on, but I like Zach Moss. Mark Mullen over on YouTube wants to know about Eno Benjamin. What do you think about Benjamin?
I think he's small. I think that weight at the Senior Bowl hurt him. I know he put on some extra weight for the combine. It was really, really tough because I felt like, Arizona State wasn't great this year, but he took almost an unexplainable step backwards in terms of production to me. Just considering, Ayuk still put out the rookie, I believe it's Jordan Taylor's his name, the rookie quarterback there for ASU. I mean, flashed some stuff. And for Eno Benjamin just not have really anything for production this year, that's a bit concerning how you can disappear like that. And then his size at the Senior Bowl, that was concerning too. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that he's going to be a piece that you can rely on very regularly. A spot play, when the guy in front of him's banged up or something. But I don't know that he's going to go and give you even 6 weeks, a month of solid play as an RB2 type guy at any point in his career.
Yeah, no, he's one of those guys that I think he's tougher than he is explosive. Like, he's just not, anytime I watch him, I was like, this dude's tough. I mean, for his size, I'm like, you might be pound for pound the toughest guy in this draft class. I mean, he didn't seem to shy away from, running in between the tackles, taking hits, but, I mean, he's just a small dude and not very explosive. I would have expected at his size to be, kind of one of those, I mean, everyone does the Darren Sproles thing. Oh, is he like Darren Sproles? No, this dude's insanely tough.
Okay, Paul corrected me on that ASU quarterback.
Jaden Daniels?
Jaden Daniels. Look out, 2022. That might be one of the good quarterbacks, I think. He's got some talent there.
Maybe.
Feel him at the end of your Devy drafts.
He's one of those guys that, he's definitely on the list of guys to consider when we're drafting here, but now I don't really have any pick in the 101, so it doesn't. All right, so we talked running backs, we talked wide receivers. Rick, is this the first show to get over in an hour? You blamed me on Sunday and then you went long last night. No, Rick, we're going over an hour because we still got quarterbacks and tight ends to talk about. Do you have any quarterback or tight end sleepers that you think you want to talk about?
Well, I'm not a fan of this tight end group, so if one of them hits, it'll shock me because I'm in a coma over the tight ends right now. They're not even sleepers for me. They're in a coma. On the quarterback side, the only one maybe, and he's kind of been bouncing back, is Jalen Hurts. Just kind of fits that mold that's been coming out. The trend that's starting, kind of like that Lamar. He's a better passer than Lamar, I think, was at that point in his career. And so I think, and he did it at two different schools at a high level. Alabama, and then he goes to Oklahoma, and he's a Heisman finalist. I mean, the guy's got some skill, and just downtrodden a little bit too much, I feel like, in the draft. But I've seen that kind of bouncing back last month, and I don't know that he's really a sleeper anymore.
Yeah, he was the first name in my article. I mean, I think if you're in a super flex draft, he's a guy that I would definitely target because I think it's obviously going to cost a lot for the big names. I think he might slide enough to where you can get him, and in a year or two, he's probably playing. I mean, like, he's the perfect mold for what the NFL is going to for quarterback play. Think of a team like the Chargers right now. So what if they spend their early round picks filling the other real big needs, and they go with, was it Taylor? Whatever his name is, the quarterback they got. Yeah, Tyrod Taylor. Thank you. They go with Tyrod Taylor. Well, Jalen Hurts is a much better version. I mean, like, he's a better athlete. He's just overall better. You could get him in the NFL draft. They could probably get him in the late second, third round, I would guess, depending. Obviously, I'm not I'm not an expert and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn, so I don't know what they're going to do. But, if they do something like that and he goes to a team that's already looking for a mobile type quarterback and they don't want to spend to get, the Jordan Loves or some of the earlier guys, I mean, that's huge. In a few years, he's then a guy that you spent less to get and probably getting decent production out of.
All right. Well, over on Facebook, I got a trade question for you, Brad.
Okay.
A.J. Brown, Juju, and the 1-3 for Mike Evans and Nick Chubb.
That's one of those that I would want. The 103, you're easily getting a running back there, and you're probably, if you look at what we did, you're probably getting, your RB2. Chubb's going to be splitting a lot of time with Hunt this. I don't know. I'm probably going with Evans and Chubb, but I'm okay with either side. I mean, either side I think is going to be really good. Like, I think either side you're still getting a win on that trade.
Yeah, I think you're getting a win on that trade either way. Mike Evans and Chubb, you're getting more guaranteed, I believe.
I love AJ Brown, Juju, and then at 103 you're getting a running back. I don't know. I'd probably hold it because you're getting.
I don't think it's a. I think it's fair either way. I mean, I think if both guys want to do it,
but Juju right now is so under. Oh yeah, Rick said it on YouTube. Selling Juju way low. Right now, Juju is not worth what he should be. I mean, last year people were drafting him. Was it like first round startup draft? Value wise, you're not getting that right now.
Yeah, well, and I'm one. I thought that was a little high on him last year. He wasn't Antonio Brown, but he was being drafted like it. And he hadn't proved he could be the wide receiver 1 yet, and I don't think he still has.
No.
So, from that standpoint, that's where I still feel like this is kind of 2 because I was never that high on Juju, not to that extreme. But yeah, it's tough. And, I think I'm going to go A, though. Looking at this, thinking about this a little bit more, just barely, because you don't have Kareem Hunt to compete with, and you're going to be, 2-3 years less wear and tear in the NFL on that running back's legs. Plus, you get 2 possible wide receiver 1s.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because you don't. That's a tough thing is, trying to project. Mike Evans obviously is the older of the 3 receivers we're talking about in this trade. But with Brady, I expect Evans to still be just a dominant wide receiver 1. A.J. Brown has wide receiver 1 potential. Juju has wide receiver 1 potential. And you've got the 103, which is going to be whatever running back that you love that isn't Jonathan Taylor. It's like, I would stick with that. I mean, I love Chubb. Nick Chubb is good, but, he's just going to continue to split time with other people, and I just don't know that the value I just don't think is enough to take B. I mean, I don't blame you if you take B because those are the bigger names. Those guys are producers, but I probably wouldn't.
Agree. I think I would lean to A, but I can't fault anybody for going either side.
Yeah, great question, Michael. I mean, that's a good one. That's a tough one because that's one you really got to mull over. But I'd probably stick to that. All right, so we do have another community question from earlier when I posted the hey, ask questions or let me know what you want to talk about. But I do want to talk. I want to throw out some tight end names, just guys to keep an eye on because I think both have potential to be probably tight end 2s, depending on where they go. I like Dalton Keene from Virginia Tech, and I like Jacob Breeland from Oregon. Both are guys that you're not going to have to draft before, mid to late 3rd round, I would think. But they could be stashes. They could be guys that, if you're looking for help at tight end because there aren't really any great tight end 2s out there. Most of them, you're either tight end 1 or you're just kind of a meh. So, those are a couple names to look at. But if you want to know why I think that, go check the article out. I'm not going to dig into that. So, But yeah, so I want to get to this last question because I think this last question could take probably 5 to 10 minutes of conversation. Aaron Mills over on Facebook, shout out to Aaron Mills. He asked in a startup draft, so startup draft, start 2 QB, and I want to expand a little bit. He asked, who are you taking in the first round? But I want to expand. How do you draft superflex drafts? Like, what do you consider? Because I just did a superflex draft, and I'll tell you what I did. But I want to know how you handle your superflex startups.
Okay. Well, I think for me, if I got the 1 or the 2 pick and Patrick Mahomes is there, I'm going Patrick Mahomes. Then after that, for me, my goal is to land a top 6 position player and hopefully a top 6 quarterback. So I tend to shy away after Mahomes from quarterbacks that first round. I'm going to go with my Saquons, my CMCs, my Zeke, Cook, Chubb, Reek, Kamara, Adams, D-Hop, one of those types of guys. Guys who arguably are going to be top 6 at the position for a couple of years. And then coming back around in the second round, I'm going to try and get that top 6 quarterback if they're still available. Now, if I'm picking 1 through 6, probably good chance I'm not getting that quarterback. But, at that point, I'm not too worried about it because if I start loading up the quarterbacks a little bit later on, I mean, that it's a lot of folks talk about it. The gap between quarterback 6 and quarterback 12 is like 2 points. And the gap between quarterback 12 and quarterback 24 is like 2 points. So you're really not losing much at that point once you get past the top 5 or 6 guys. So I'm okay with that. If I don't get in a situation where I can get a guy that I think is, perennial top 6 position player followed by a top 6 quarterback, then I'm going to start looking at trading out of that second round and trading back and starting to accumulate picks in the 3rd or 4th through the 8th rounds and get me as much depth as I can at all the positions.
So in a couple shows back, I was actually in the middle of this draft, and Rick and I were kind of chit-chatting about it as we were talking. I wound up having the 114, so I was the last pick. It's a 14-team league. So I was 114 and 2-1, back to back. So throughout the draft, I was back to back at the end of the round. I wound up going quarterback. So the first round went like this. Patrick Mahomes was the 101. Saquon was the 1-2. CMC was the 3. Lamar Jackson was the 4. Zeke went 5. Kyler Murray went 6. Michael Thomas 7. You could draft rookie picks. So the rookie 101 went 8, which obviously Joe Burrow. Deshaun Watson went 9. Russell Wilson went 10. Alvin Kamara was 11. Devontae Adams 12. Nick Chubb was the 13. So at that point, I was like, okay, an insane amount of quarterbacks have gone already. Like, if I want my quarterbacks, I'm not getting them at the end of the 3rd round and the 4th round unless I'm going with, just shot in the dark guys that are just going to fill in. And I wouldn't do that. I would just go with best player. So I went Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz back to back. I just said, you know what? I'll go with my quarterbacks and I'll just load up the rest of the draft. And I did. I didn't draft another quarterback till like the 20-something round where I just grabbed Ryan Fitzpatrick, so I had a backup for this year. And, and I grabbed a bunch of other draft picks throughout the draft. So I'm not opposed to going quarterback. If you see a run and there's still a couple of decent guys, if you're a later pick. In these superflex type drafts, though, first round, I want, the best. I want whatever guy's going to kind of be the foundational piece of my team, so I don't mind the Patrick Mahomes of the world going early. Lamar, I think Patrick Mahomes is kind of in a tier by himself, quarterback wise. So the rest of them after that, like Kyler Murray and, Deshaun Watson and some of these other guys, what was it? It was Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson is a guy I've targeted plenty of times in drafts over the last few years because he's just always good. But some of those guys, like I would have considered them at the back half of the first. I'm not sure I would have considered them, like Kyler Murray over Michael Thomas. I don't know that I would consider that. Like Michael Thomas is really good. Zeke I think is pretty solid at the 1-5. But Superflex drafts are always interesting to me because they really do flip the script on how you draft. Normally, it's you just take the best. So your running backs are going early. You're getting kind of the big name running backs, then the big name receivers. You're not drafting quarterbacks till later. But Superflex, it's all off the board.
Well, and and your point is well taken. You have to really let that draft come to you, and in that case, a lot of quarterbacks going. Your best case is probably to get those quarterbacks at that point. As you were saying, that's one of the benefits, especially in a superflex draft, of picking later in the first round, is you kind of get to see how things are falling a little bit. Because if you get that big run like you had, you can change on the fly and you can go those quarterbacks. Where if I'm picking second in that draft and I take Saquon, and now I don't pick again for. Oh, you said it was a 20 or 14 teams. I don't pick again for 15 picks. By the time I'm coming around to pick, am I looking at Jared Goff?
Mm-hmm.
Am I looking at Matt Stafford? I don't know who's available at that point. If 27 picks, if 19 quarterbacks go, I could be in a world of hurt.
Yeah, I mean, and Aaron Mills didn't ask deeper than the first few rounds. He just kind of wanted to know what the beginning was, but. Because I just wrapped this draft up, like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I figured it'd be a perfect example. I wound up obviously going quarterback, grabbed Ryan Fitzpatrick later, grabbed Kyle Allen later, just kind of shot in the dark guys to kind of fill in the backup there. But the rest of my team is solid. My running backs, I've got Aaron Jones, Marlon Mack, Sony Michel, Kareem Hunt, Jordan Howard, Jalen Samuels. At wide receiver, I've got Cooper Kupp, Tyler Lockett, Allen Robinson, Nelson Aguilar for depths, ESB, Marquez Valdez, Scantling, Golden Tate. I've got a couple tight ends. It isn't tight end premium, but I also drafted picks as well. So I got the 105, and then I've got 2-2, 2-4, 2-8, 2-12. I mean, I drafted a bunch of picks to fill in some of those other depth. And the 105 is probably could potentially be a quarterback depending on how it falls, or one of the better running backs in the class. I mean, it's, depending on how you set your draft up and how you do it, you could really come away with some value no matter where you're sitting at. But, I tried not to let the runs get me other than at the beginning with quarterback, because those are a lot harder to fill in than some of these other positions.
Yeah, for sure. And I think if you can avoid that quarterback run early, then you can set yourself up pretty good in the later rounds. But when you get into that early quarterback run like that league had, then for me that would have to change the way I want to attack the draft, knowing the way that is.
Yeah. And normally I try to make trades in the startup drafts. I try to acquire other, but it wasn't, it just didn't make sense in any, some of the trade offers I got just didn't make sense because even, as that run of quarterbacks went, I looked at trading my first round pick. I was like, all right, so who wants the 114? What are you willing to give up? And there just wasn't a value enough for it. In startup draft, if I'm trading a potentially fairly premium pick, I want a nice return, and it just wasn't happening.
For sure.
So, good question, Aaron Mills. If there's other questions, make sure you guys get them out there. I appreciate those of you that are hanging out with us. I know that we've done a real good job tonight. We've kept it, just over an hour. It hasn't been the 2-hour show we normally do. But if anyone has any questions or anything we want to talk about, feel free to shoot it through. Me and Rob are here to help. Are there any other rookie thoughts that you wanted to talk about? Obviously, we're now getting under 3 weeks to the draft. We're getting close. Is there something that you're thinking about that you want to process and talk through, or?
No, I'm just, my biggest thing is, my biggest question on the draft is how many times is Bill O'Brien going to miss his pick? He doesn't seem like he's got it all together, but no, I'm actually really interested to see how this draft goes and the way it's different, knowing that it's going to be, with all the things going on in the world all right virtual. Now. The draft is going to be interesting and unique, and we might never see another one like this. And so, just from that standpoint, I'm really excited for the draft just to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously, if you're watching the news and the football news, a lot of the teams are kind of griping about it. But I'm like, guys, with technology the way it is, how do you not have a plan in place to handle this. You could do conference. I do conference calls almost all day, every day for my job, and and I'm constantly sitting on chats and meetings and having chat windows up. So it's just wild to think about. The teams are so concerned about it. It's like, guys, this should be easy for you. I mean, I don't know what the problem is.
Yeah, but it's a different game. Your job's different than theirs is. I mean, even I've, the last couple of weeks with the way things have been going on, my job has changed a lot. I'm a news director and a news reporter, and I'm used to being out on the street and with my mic,
I know.
talking to people and that kind of stuff. And now I'm sitting in the office. I'm doing most of my interviews by phone. I interviewed a group of teachers about distance learning this weekend, and a group of students that were supposed to go to a state competition this weekend. They had won every competition they were in all year, a group of seniors, and they didn't get to go, and talk to them about that and about distance learning as well from my computer. And we did interviews in Google Hangouts where we were all kind of hanging out and chatting, and that's how I'm putting together news right now. And that's so much different than my normal life. And a month ago, I'd have said, no way. We're not doing this over Google. Give me a time. I'll be there. We'll set it up. We'll do it in person.
We'll do it live.
And that's just not the world anymore.
Yeah, it's way different.
Yep.
All right, so we got 2 questions. Over on Facebook, Paul wants to know, does anyone else like Van Jefferson?
I think he's got something unique that I'll take a flyer on if I'm looking and I'm not seeing anybody else that I like, and that is just, he's got that NFL background. He's got the dad that's a wide receiver coach. Maybe that translates into something. That said, he's old and didn't really do a whole lot in college, so maybe the apple fell a little bit far from the tree. We'll just have to see. But, worth a late round flyer. I'm definitely not reaching for him. It's more of I don't know who I can take, and I can't trade this pick right now, so I'll take a chance there.
Well, the thing, and anybody who's watched Rick and I long enough know that we're big fans of route runners. If you're a good route runner, we're a big fan of you. And, Van Jefferson is a pretty solid route runner. That's something that's going for him that, I would definitely think he could easily be a guy that, is sitting around in your 3rd round that you could stash and see, maybe he can be, because, and he's a little more mature than some of these younger guys, maybe he can pick up it a little quicker and give you some value, but I wouldn't be a 2nd round buyer. I'd probably be a 3rd round buyer.
Yeah, I think late 3rd round is the earliest I'd be looking to potentially make that move.
And then, this will, yeah, yes, Rick, that too. You have to be a good football player, but route running takes a lot of work. And yeah, okay. YouTube, Young Team D. Thoughts on Ronald Jones? I know Rick will have lots to say about Ronald Jones, but how do you feel about him, Rob?
I think he showed he got better this year than his rookie year.
I was surprised he had over 1,000 yards total.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there was impressive enough. Obviously, they moved on from Peyton Barber. There's 2 ways you could read that. Either they want to give Ronald Jones more run, or the way I'm choosing to read it right now is they're going to go after somebody in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if they go after one of the top 5 guys, if we include Clyde Edwards-Helaire in there, yeah, Ronald Jones isn't going to amount to much. It's just I mean, I know there's believers out there. There's Ronald Jones truthers, like Rashad Penny truthers. And as much as I don't want to give up on Rashad Penny, I know there's people who don't want to give up on Ronald Jones. So, I can't blame you for holding him, but I don't know.
I wound up getting a share in a trade. I had wrote an article about Ronald Jones and was surprised by everything I'd found out. Because I really wasn't a huge fan. I don't know that I had a share before this trade this year that got me a share. They have to bring in help. The guy's just not that kind of running back. I mean, and in the NFL nowadays, most teams aren't a 1 running back team, so I think he does some things well, but I just don't think he can be trusted as your top RB. You know, in a package, he could easily, you know, go get a big back, go get a physical back, a between the tackles guy. Let Ronald Jones be a guy that you get out in space where he's not behind the line of scrimmage more often than not because he somehow likes to lose yards more than most. You know, but get him out in space. Let him try to use some of that speed to do some damage. And draft a guy, you know, third, fourth round. Get yourself a big bag. Get yourself somebody physical. I would love to see a guy like a Zach Moss or an A.J. Dillon go there. Though if A.J. Dillon goes there, I could see them not need Ronald Jones because A.J. Dillon can catch too. So, you know, something like
Zach
that.
Moss could be a good fit for his skill set. That could be a good kind of a 1-2 punch. You know, I think if they get too good of a back, like you said, too good of a pass catching back, I just don't know what that leaves them other than the scraps.
Right.
You know, if you get a Cam Akers or a Clyde Edwards-Helaire or, you know, any of those kind of guys, I think he's left on the scrap heap.
Yep. And then Young Team D also had another question. He said, forgot this was about rookies. We'll answer any questions. I don't care if it's rookies or not. But his question is, does A.J. Dillon get drafted in the first round of a rookie Dynasty Superflex draft?
No. Nope. I don't think at all. Personally, I don't know that I'm getting him in the second round of a one quarterback draft. That's just me. Yeah, he's big, physical. He's got the look and the combine numbers that make you think Derrick Henry, but I don't see that on the football field. So, I'm a third round guy for him. I don't think he's going to get there very often.
I don't think he'll get there. I think he's probably going to be in the second round somewhere, probably mid to late second round. People start considering him. I think he's interesting, but I don't know that, you know, I mean, I have to pull up my board, but I don't think he's in the top 10 of my running backs.
Late second round, I think. Yeah, I can see once you get to, you know, like pick 20 or something, somewhere in there. That real latter half of the second round, I could probably go for him. The one area spot I think that will bump him up, and you know, this was Rick who brought him up a couple of weeks ago on the live stream. Was talking about a good spot being Buffalo. And I think if that happens, that could bump him up. My Devin Singletary shares will hate it, but I think that would be a really good fit.
Yeah, Rick sees him as the top half of the second rounder over on YouTube. So I think he's got some potential. Definitely a guy I would target, but I'm not a buyer too early because there's so many better players in this draft.
Yep. Well, you know, and yeah, we've all got them. You know, that's the glorious part of doing rankings and stuff, right? We all end up a little bit different. Our values are all a little bit different, and you know, I think Dylan lands in the right spot. Sure, I'll move him up my board a little bit.
Yeah, Paul agrees with you. He doesn't think he's a second rounder in a Superflex draft.
Yeah, Superflex, I definitely don't think so. It's one quarterback I could see him late second right now.
So Mark Mullen over on YouTube, thank you for hanging out with us, wants to know, do we think Jalen Hurd will have an impact this year?
I think so. He was a guy I was this year. I think, you know, I still think he's raw a little bit, but, you know, look what Debo did, and Jalen Hurd is kind of that same mold. And so it might, you know, he can run the ball and he can do some pass catching. I think as a receiver, he still has some work to do, but, you know, I like him.
Yeah, I mean, right now, if the season started today, he's probably one of their starting receivers. Quite honestly, I mean, they moved on from Emmanuel Sanders. You know,
they moved on from Marquise too, didn't they?
Well, he's still on the roster, but they're trying to get rid of him. They hate Dante Pettis, so obviously he's not going to get any love. They did re-sign Kendrick Bourne, but that guy's not a starter. He's kind of a slot guy, you know, kind of a gadgety type player. So, I mean, I could easily see Hurd getting a chance to being a starter this year. There's a lot of hype coming in, you know, so there's definitely potential there for him. You know, I'm not spending a lot to get him, but.
Well, you know, and if they don't draft a running back, who knows? He'll probably be this year's Raheem Mostert. You know, they got to have 12 different guys carrying the rock, so.
So hopefully that helps, Mark. Alan Burns over on YouTube. I have picked 12 in my Dynasty League after winning last year. I'm in heavy need of running back. Will there be someone available that is worth giving up a solid wide receiver at that position? So I think, if you're in heavy need of a running back, I don't think at pick 12. I mean, I think at pick 12, you could probably still get a running back. He may not be a guy that's a for sure starter immediately, but probably could be. If you watched our YouTube of the mock that we just published, there's still plenty of running backs available at the 112. But, if you need a for sure thing, you're going to have to pay to go up and get them, which goes back to what we talked about earlier. We don't like to do that in rookie drafts unless you have to. If you're giving up a wide receiver, if you have wide receiver depth to give up, that's one thing. But I'd be careful there. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I would too. A guy that I like there at that spot, if I'm in that situation, is probably looking at Keyshawn Vaughn. Depending, where he lands, that could change that a little bit. But, I think he's a guy who could be there. He's my number 6 running back. But yeah, trading up, it's going to cost you. So I think, you kind of got to maybe look at picking up a veteran. What can you do from that spot? Can you package a couple of guys deeper down on your roster to maybe go after Todd Gurley for 1 year and try to repeat? And,
yeah, I mean,
if it fails out, and you end up a little higher in next year's draft, then you get your running back. But I think I wouldn't try to reach up into the top 4 unless you've got the pieces, unless you think you have the pieces to still compete with overpaying.
Well, I think there's kind of 2 ways to take it. So you either overpay to go up, which is never an idea I would recommend, or you take what's there. So you're taking a wide receiver. At the 12 spot, you're probably getting one of the nice wide receivers in the class, and then you try to make a deal after the fact. Because as soon as the draft is over, people are going to be ready to trade. It's just the way it works. People like trading around draft time. They like trading during the draft, but they also like trading after. Hit somebody up. Go get a running back. Use your 212 to take a running back that you may be interested in that's slipped down that far. I'm definitely not overpaying to go up into the top half. As much as these running backs are really good, the top 4 or 5 running backs are really nice. They're just going to be insanely expensive right now.
Yep, agreed. And if you kind of do what you said and sit back and you're looking at that 212, even if a guy hasn't necessarily fallen that you want as a running back right there, maybe a guy's fallen that somebody else is clamoring for, and you can get that plug-in piece at running back for that 212, and you still got your wide receiver at the 112. So I'd be really careful about trying to move up and just kind of let it fall to you, like we were saying. And if you come out of the draft and you still feel that's a hole, now look at trying to make a move.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question, Alan. I mean, that's one of those questions, that you always are going to wrestle with, especially when you're one of the later picks. If you see a clear need on your team and you just, you're not sure how you're going to fill it, but definitely don't rush and make a decision that you may regret, because that's just not, it's just not valuable for your team long term. And, well said, Rob. I agree. I think we got a good plan there. So Jono Sand XO on YouTube, I apologize, I'm sure I butchered that, said, is Derrick Henry for the 2020 107 and Calvin Ridley a decent trade in Dynasty?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Hands down. Take that and go cash that check at the bank. And that's a good investment. I'm a big time Calvin Ridley guy, and actually, if you look back a couple of years, remember Calvin Ridley was a first-round pick, right around that 1.7 range. So you're talking a 26-year-old running back going to be 27, I believe, who's had one good season. One good season. It was a great season, especially the last half. Probably took you pretty deep in the playoffs and stuff. And he was great in 2019, but he's had one good year. Chances of that repeating and sustaining, not great. 1.7, you're looking in a good spot there with a running back or a top wide receiver, and Calvin Ridley's just a bonus and a guy I think who is definitely undervalued because of Julio Jones still being around there in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But a guy who can be a number one wide receiver.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have Henry on one roster, and I think I had some offers for him, but nothing that, I was okay to just sit on it. I'm not going to trade him for less than I think he's worth. And 107 would be fine. Like if somebody offered me the 106, 107, I would jump all over it. If you're offering me the 107 and a talented young wide receiver, I'll take that every day. I mean, that's a good deal. We'll have a solid 2020. I mean, most of that team is back except for the right tackle. So Henry should have every opportunity to be solid for another season. I just don't, I want to sell him when he's at his peak value. And that probably was as soon as the season ended, and now that people are having time to think about how great he's not, they're probably not wanting to pay what you're going to, what you're going to want. So, you're probably holding on to him, but if you're a team that isn't competing or is a team that's borderline in season, if he's still doing what he's doing, that's when you start trying to move him again, so. But yeah, good question. And Adam Bailey says he's worthless. He doesn't want him. Yeah, I don't want him. I would agree. I don't want him. He's definitely one of those guys that he ain't gonna last much longer. And he's not. I don't know that he even signed his franchise tag, so he may not even be another. He might be one season in Tennessee and gone, and then useless again.
Yeah.
So,
who knows?
Yeah.
I just don't think you can rely on 3 years of mediocrity, 4 years of mediocrity, whatever it was, and 1 year of success, and not go and jump at a good offer like that.
Oh, for sure. So, great questions, guys. Those are what we want to talk about. We want to talk about what the things you need. Oh, he did sign it. Okay. Thanks, Jono. He signed it. I expected him to be in Tennessee for one more year, whether he had signed the franchise or not, because nobody's going to pay for him. So, So, Rob, I'm glad you're hanging out with me tonight. I appreciate you coming by and talking some more fantasy football. And, I'm sure we'll be together again here soon because you're a trooper and willing to help Rick and I out.
Oh, yeah. Well, I like coming on and talking. It's what I do best. I got the gift of gab, so.
As do Rick and I, because these things never go less than an hour and a half. So, it's a great conversation. It's always a fun time to just sit back and chit chat about this and help people. I would encourage you guys that are in the chat still. I appreciate everybody that's hanging out. Don't forget to check out rotoheat.com for all of our rookie content, our ADPs, our rankings. We're pumping out articles on the daily. We're doing a lot of 2020 Dynasty outlooks on individual players. So there's a lot that's going on over on our rotoheat.com site. I know Rick posted our Discord and our Facebook, but also here on YouTube, we just dropped the first round. We did a rookie mock where we got guys from other communities involved. So we got DLF, we got Fake Pigskin, we got writers from all over, as well as some of our guys like Rob and I involved. We're going to do round 1 is published today. We're working on round 2, and we're going to do some more of that for you. I see Rick in the chat says he's going to be live Friday night. So Friday night we will be live again, but normally we're live Sunday night. Rick and I, and lately it's been Rob. So if Rob's available, the three of us will be on here talking fantasy football. We did a big Q&A session on Sunday night. Monday nights I do IDP with Craig, with Paul, with whichever defensive guys want to jump on and talk defense. And then Tuesday nights is typically our big show. So we would love you guys to come back. I appreciate the new visitors. I saw some new guys on here, Aiden and those guys. I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us and talking football. Until next time, Stay safe, and we will talk to you guys